The DIESOL podcast,
Developing innovation in English as a second or other language.
episode 90, Making Game Shows with Ryan O'Donnell.
Welcome to Diesel. This is episode 90. We are your hosts. I'm Brent Warner.
And I'm Michelle Reyes, and the summer is almost over, I think.
Is there an official? I think it's over.
It's
What's
summer
the official?
forever in
I mean,
Texas.
there is an actual date that the summer ends on. So, I'm ready for fall because in Japan that koyo comes, which is the changing of the leaves, which we don't get in Southern California. Absolutely beautiful. Michelle, I think we're gonna jump right into things today. Today we have special guest, Mr. Ryan O'Donnell.
Insert sound effect here.
Yeah, I know. So Ryan, we were telling you pre-show we don't have any sound effects available right now. We have to make them all with our mouth. And so welcome to the show, Ryan. Ryan is a video production teacher at Rockland High School for 20 something years. Is that right?
I stopped counting after 20.
And that's the entire bio that you gave to us.
Yeah. So my quick thing is that I've been, for a lot of us, you get in for one reason and then you modify and you evolve. I started out wanting to get an education to be a high school football teacher and then realized that doesn't pay. So then hey, social studies teacher. Then from social studies teaching, started to do techie fun things. And then, did that for about 13, 14 years, got out and became a TOSA for a while. And then the school I was at said, hey, you like doing techie video stuff. So do you want to start doing broadcasting and film? And I'm like, oh my goodness. Yes. So this will be how I'm going to do the third act of my career, I believe, is doing this.
Yeah, and Ryan, we're friends through Q, and so some of these organizations with all, and I've seen you do lots of presentations on video production and doing these things, and your sessions are always just packed out because you have all these fun, interesting things for people to kind of do and to play with. You kind of work on more interactive stuff with everybody, right?
Yeah, the interactive piece is something that I found most. I think the inspiration for a lot of what I did primarily was with those years in social studies when the thing I spent most of my human capital on was I taught AP World History, and I started the year it was first opened. I think it was 01, 02, I think is when I started that, and it's a bear of a class. I mean, the AP curriculum is really tough, and one of the interesting parts about AP though was that we had our test, the national exam was on like early May and our school was out in early June. So I had a month, which was kind of neat. And that was this like, nobody cares at this point, but also like, we can't just sit around and do nothing. And that was this incubator for me to start doing hey, we got a month and I got some really top-notch kids who are they'll do stuff. And every year we were doing something different. One year we were doing, hey, let's go back in time and do history news broadcasts. And so these kids were doing the Kublai Khan's defense of the Mongol invasion. Another group was doing, the Black Plague. Another group was doing the Aztecs and Cortez. And they would go around. I'm like, that was fun. And the next time I'm going to let's do like a documentary using iPads and doing all this. So it was this really interesting way for me to be able to start dabbling and playing with things. And that just has kind of evolved. And what you had mentioned too, Brent, was about like, how can I get kids and even adults as well, just interacting and being a doer.
Yeah. I think it works really well because one of the things we've seen at Q several times is you've done these events and I've kind of been on the sidelines helping out a little bit, but people really engage with these types of activities that you've been building over time. And today we're actually talking about your game shows that you're building out. And you've been doing this listener, we got to do the promotional side of things. Listeners, if you listen through to the end of the episode, you're going to get some sort of very awesome freebie, but you have to listen for the keyword.
No fast forwarding. It has been disabled. I don't know how you disable it on all podcast platforms, but you are unable. Some people are trying right now. Oh, and you're going to realize, oh my God, they're right. You can't fast forward. How did they do that? Brent and Michelle have taken over my phone.
It's a great, you just have to know the right people. That's That's the way to do it. So you've got these games, and they've been tons of fun, but people get engaged with them. People totally start having fun with them. And so today we wanted to talk a little bit about building out these kind of they're PowerPoint based games. Is that right? Usually.
Yeah. Pretty much these PowerPoint or Google Slides.
Okay, PowerPoint or Google Slides based games. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about some of those, maybe do some walkthroughs on how they work a little bit. Maybe if people want to know or start seeing how they can kind of get into it and maybe start building their own if they're interested. But before any of that, Ryan, you had said that there was you had some sort of language learning experience tied in with all of this. So I'm going to just force that right into the middle.
I got a quick story that was what you guys were talking about. We were talking about language and such, and in the dual language, and I only speak English, but to back up, I mentioned like my journey was to be a high school football coach. Before that, I had no idea. I played football in high school, played football in college, graduated with a degree that had nothing to do with anything. And so I'm graduated and criminal justice major, and I don't know where to go, what to do. And a bunch of my former friends said, hey, you can go out to Europe and still play football. And I'm like, well, I got nothing going on. So next thing I know, I've connected with a team in Munich, Germany, and I am their sole American. And it's really interesting. American football at the time in the 90s was nobody played football, but a lot of these guys wanted to have their startup teams. And so America, if you could afford an American, it was like we were at a different level. So my team didn't have a lot of money. They could afford one. So that means I had to play offense and play defense. And I was the assistant coach, and I'm at 24 years old or whatever. And it was just embedded. I'm the only American. Many of the guys spoke English, but quite a few didn't. And so we had this language issue. And then after the second game, the head coach quits. He leaves literally at the end of the game. All these guys look at me and say, Ryan, you want to coach? And I'm like, oh, okay. We have some language issues, and I've never done this before, but you're paying me, so what the heck? So now I'm the head coach, and that kind of changed my life. That was now I want to be a coach. I went back to the United States and wanted to be a coach. That's when I got sent to the high school and everything else I shared after that. But while I'm coaching, this interesting thing happened, which was that all of our plays were numbers. So like we would have an even number, 16 would be a run to the right, and the opposite would be a 17, 16s and 17s. But then we also had a passing structures that we had numbers above 50. So I had 60s and 70s. So if we wanted to run a 60 would be a pass, but a 16 would be a run. And the guy was, and the way the plays would work is I was playing, but I would just, after the play, I would tell the quarterback, and then he would turn around and tell us, but they all wanted to do the numbers in English. And his accent was so hard for everybody. Even the Germans couldn't understand him. And so he was saying 16, and we're in the huddle and goes, did he say 16 or 60? We're like, I don't know. Well, next thing you know, we're getting penalties because nobody knows what the play is. So I had to learn the numbering system. So we went, English numbers were German was 0 to 50, and then English was 50 and above. And we're like, hey, that solved the thing. And I just had to learn how to do some numbering in German. And it was just sort of a real neat experience and such. And so to this day, my time in Germany kind of was the catalyst of what's put me here.
So you can count to 50 then, right?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah.
You got it. All right. That 16 and 60 thing though is, if you talk to ESL teachers, that's like everybody knows that. Yeah, we have to we teach that lesson over and over again about stretching out the sounds and how to make sure the end sound is in there. So it's a very it's a common issue for many of us as we jump in here.
Interesting. Okay.
All right. So Ryan, we're gonna start looking at some of these games, some of the things that you're actually building here. And so, Ishel, do you want to start off with any of these? So Ryan gave us some links to several of the games. We'll take a look at some of them, and Ryan, you'll kind of explain what's going on with them. But Ishel, I'll have you start off and choose what you want to look at first.
So the first one I opened, and I don't know if these are in order that you sent them, but the first one out of the ones I looked at that I didn't recognize any of the graphics was Frazzle.
Love it. Okay, yeah. So that the quick story on Frazzle is this, or all of my games is this. I think so many of us have know that the grandfather of games is Jeopardy, and many people have played Jeopardy. You saw Jeopardy, and we've been doing it before the tech days when teachers would do a chalkboard or they do little index cards. that you would say, hey, I want vocab for 200. And then you take the index card off the board and you read it. And so many of us still do that. But in essence, I have Jeopardy games available, those kind of things. But in essence, it's still just a Q&A. And I like the idea of changing it up a little bit from, I just don't want to ask questions and have kids, did they know or not know the answer? Because that's not really, it's somewhat fun-ish, but it's not the most engaging thing. And so I have many of these other games that have other levels of them. Frazzle, the game that you mentioned, is my it's the opposite of Jeopardy. It is also based on a television show, and I have this version too. I got two versions. I got my own. I made this thing called Frazzle, but it's based on a show that's been around forever called the $100,000 Pyramid. And why it's the opposite is, if Jeopardy is you give the question as the teacher and the kids give the answer, Pyramid or Frazzle is the opposite. You just have a prompt on the board. Now your students are the ones who have to prompt the other student who is not able to see it to guess it. In essence, it's the game. If you go to any amusement park and you're standing in line, somebody's playing the game on their phone, heads up, and that's it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's an unbelievably fun game. So at the high school level, when I'm teaching my classes, I'll have three or four of the same classes in a day. So I get to play Frazzle, let's say 4 times with 4 different groups of kids. And even within there have multiple rounds, and they're all so different and organic because I have no idea what the kid's going to say to be able to get the other person to get to the prompt. It's the words photosynthesis. Good luck. You got 30 seconds to get the other person to say photosynthesis. And this is almost all of what these type of games. Many people say you do games, and although we call them games, they're really these are review experiences or game show reviews that is really based on, we've covered some content one way or another. However you've taught that, they've read it, they've watched it, they've listened to you, they've done whatever. And I don't want to be able to see, as we go into some sort of an assessment, i.e. test or whatever you want to call it, like, let's see what we know about this thing. Let's see what we've learned. And it's a really awesome experience to sit back and I do Frazzle, and I just sit in there with my clicker, and the kid gets photosynthesis, and I just click to the next one. So I'm relatively uninvolved, just watching these kids go through and trying to be able to get the others to be able to say that. And there's rules you can add or not add. I have a timer built into it. And the timer simply is just a YouTube video that lasts 20 seconds. Oftentimes, though, by the way, if you don't want to, I just taught summer school this last summer, and I wanted to be able, and the kids struggled a little bit more. So I'm like, I'm just going to get rid of the timer. It's just a YouTube video, delete it. And I'm just going to be the guide. I realize sooner or later when the kids are done, they move on. And so, I basically do like, hey, you got, for one round, you got 7 terms to get. They could be people, places, events, vocabulary, even images. I've used to do this. I mean, I've been doing this for so long. Both of my kids are in college. We would do this at their birthday parties. We would do it before they could read. We would just put up, one time we did like Disney or Pixar movies, and we just put the poster behind. And it's interesting seeing like a 4 or 5-year-old trying to explain, Toy Story. Oh, this is the movie where you have, and it's great because now they're communicating, and trying to get and using those skills in terms of their verbal skills and how to try to be able to give clues, but not say the part of it. And it is to this day, it hits all the wins for me. It's the easiest game to set up. You just type in words. It is the most fun. It's the one that it evolves the most based on the class, and it's also the one that I have done the most and will continue to do the most.
Ryan, so I'm looking at it, and it's reminding me of sometimes when I'm having to review words with students, I don't have time. I don't have time to create the flashcards or to create something. And I like that. I think for me, that you have the built-in timer. Yes, I have the little physical timers. Yes, I can do it on a cell phone. But the fact that it's there seems like it's a one fewer step that I have to worry about. And the students can run it themselves. Like we have a huge smart board. But now I'm thinking this morning I had to review, I was subbing in a class I'd never taught before. And it was, so I teach English for specific purposes. And it was basic electricity. And I knew the terms, but they had different, it was a particular jargon. And I had to review with them. And if I had this ready to go, instead of asking them, okay, let's just one at a time explain, it would have made my job as a sub
more enjoyable
and more enjoyable.
Let's go
for
back in
them
time.
yeah.
Well, I also like that too, because I mean, it's super simple. When you have this template here, you could also give it to a student, right? And say you put in the
They
words,
run it, yeah.
and then they could even be the one running it for the class or for the other students who are doing it. So there you could really get quite hands off once you just have the simple, straightforward template here. There's lots of opportunities there. So
yeah, oftentimes many teachers will have you'll have a study guide for the unit you're doing. Hey, we're doing 8th grade science and we're doing, I don't know, molecular biology or something like that. Anyway, and there's a little, hey, on the study guide, it's the things that we're going to ask you. This is the terms, the people, the places. And so a great idea to be able to give it to the kids, have them decide which ones that they're ultimately going to be able to put in there and such. And so it is straight, grab the study guide, put them in. Also, I show all the time too, you don't have a study guide, go to Quizlet. Quizlet is where I go all the time to be able to get teacher flashcards, and you search for whatever topic that you're doing. You're like, oh, it's all right there for you. Quizlet even allows you to be able to search when you say, let's say I wanted to do 8th grade US history. I can type 8th grade US history and then say, just give me Quizlets created by teachers. So not the student ones. And like, oh, so now I got some of these great examples of these other units of study that I could straight pull from.
That's awesome. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna jump over to the game that I have seen.
Can I add something? Yeah. You know what I love? That I didn't know. You said there's a game called the $1,000 pyramid.
$100,000 pyramid.
Yeah, I've never heard of it, but just changing the name on something or giving that name to an activity, the students, like, for example, I can already see, oh, my students are gonna say, what's frazzle? What does frazzle mean, by the way, frazzle? And so it would get, for English learners, that's a great way to engage them, and not having, sometimes they get tired of the Kahoots. So it's like, okay, do something.
Here's the neat part about my frazzle game that I made. I had the cool little, like, it's got an emoji icon and I wrote frazzle. That's not a graphic. That's just text. So feel free to rename it whatever you want it to be. I mean, it's just, you could, it's not like, how do I change whatever? Like, no, it's just a text box. So
yeah, for ESL, for students, like,
yeah. Well, yeah, none of my students would know what frazzle is by themselves.
They wouldn't.
Sure, so.
But then they'd use it after this.
Yeah. Sorry, and that's what's kind of neat too. It's so wild that I'll be in my class. Our school's about 2,000 kids here, and we'll be playing, I'll say, hey, everybody, we got a game to play. And I'll hear kids that will say, oh, we're going to play frazzle, a kid I've never had before. And I'm like, oh, you played frazzle before? Like, oh yeah, we played frazzle in Miss so-and-so's English class. And I'm like, we have so many teachers who are now doing it. I'm like, oh, that's really cool.
That is really cool. And it's cool when they ask other teachers, hey, do you have that game that such and such teacher plays? And it'll be nice. And you're like, yes, I do.
Ishel, you mentioned Kahoot. I kind of, and nothing against the people at Kahoot. I think it's awesome, but I do feel like we have all played a lot of Kahoots.
We are Kahooted out. I've been Kahooted out for a long time.
Again, and nothing negative against them. They've just done a wonderful job of doing the same thing over and over again. So
they've saturated the quiz show market, right?
Yes. Because what they did is they made it straight up easy.
Yeah.
It's super easy to be able to do them in. The student interactivity, Kahoot had just nailed and did a wonderful job at.
So this is the next one that I was looking at, which is I've seen so many teachers go, I wish I could bring this into my classroom, but I don't know how with the cards or whatever else it is. So apples to apples. I am really interested to see how you set this up, Ryan, because now it's on the drive there. It's accessible for everyone. How do we bring apples to apples into a little bit larger classroom?
Gotcha. So although I call myself the game show guy, I'm trying to do game shows / board games. So the apples to apples, and I just shared you guys another link if you want to check in the chat. So I have an apples to apples. Hey, this is what you put up on the screen kind of a thing, but it's not really a screen game. This is more of a board game. And you like the apples to apples is a wonderful game about that argument about, hey, I'm going to be able to say, bring up a topic, and then can you be able to, if you've seen the rules for it, so like I say something that is I can't think of any offhand for like a vocabulary, something that is exciting, and then you have all these other things. Oh, I think movies are exciting, or I think my mother-in-law is exciting, or I think, and now you have to go, you got 30 seconds and say, why is your mother-in-law exciting, or why are movies exciting, or why is your pet goldfish exciting? And so it's a great opportunity for me to, I got to be able to put together my debate, if you would, and I need to be able to present my points and ultimately have a judge vote on who gave up the best example of exemplar model of that. Have you guys played apples to apples and got the and follow this?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, that's what I'm curious. Now that you showed the template, so on the screen on our end, we see a template, and I'm thinking, ooh, this would make it so much more fun for
Yeah.
basic electricity vocabulary and adjectives,
Yeah.
and then throw in a few random ones,
Yeah.
non-electricity ones.
So I have the one that you could put up on the screen that the class can follow, but there's another one that I made that I changed the Google Slides, and I have it in both PowerPoint or Google Slides. I changed the dimensions from a 16:9 ratio, basically the size of your projectors or TV screen in your classroom, and I changed it to an 8.5 by 11. So it's a printout. And so this one straight up is, I just recreated the apples to apples card and rotated the text boxes so you make your own. So I have, you can go like there's one green, and then there's the red cards that go with it. So if I wanted to do something, let's say if I'm teaching a U.S. history class and I wanted to do dangerous would be the word. And then I would say, okay, from U.S. history, what is dangerous? I could put nuclear weapons. I could put Richard Nixon. I could put Woodstock, things like that. And then the kids are like, all right, why is Richard Nixon dangerous? Okay, Richard Nixon was dangerous because of that kind of a thing. And then you can add some fun ones in there too. They're all designed to be 8.5 by 11. So you type them in there, and I even put the backs on there too. So this is straight, like I said, straight board game. You just go print. Hope you have access to a color printer. If you don't, not a big deal. Then you take them out. Do you have a laminator at the school, and you put them, you know, the card on the back and the I can't talk. Then the other side on the front. You run through a laminator, and you got your own built-in. You make your own little apples to apples cards with whatever your content you want.
I love that. Yeah. And, you know, I'm glad you started off with that example. Just, I know you were searching for a word and you found exciting, but like that actually is a common issue for our language learners, is the ing versus the ed forms of words. So saying, hey, this is exciting. Yep. Yeah. I am excited. I am exciting. Right. And so, so you can also see how you could start tying in language points here and saying, hey, if you guys are going to be using this, if you're going to say, you know, my mother-in-law is exciting versus my mother-in-law is excited. Right.
Oh, wow. That's a good point.
And so you start having these conversations where they're getting into groups with each other and they're trying to make these arguments, but they need to make sure that they know what the subject is and what that means when they're using the ing form, because it goes bored, boring, you know, interested, interesting. All of these ones. And so these are common.
Happen, Brent, is eventually, while you know, after they argue, somebody who does know the difference is going to say, no, that one cannot be exciting, and then they'll engage in that authentic peer-to-peer interaction.
That's right. Yeah, that's where I'm seeing it as going, oh, okay, because then once you start getting them actually talking about what those words mean and then understanding what's going on inside of there, when they're playing the game, they're not really thinking about the fact that they're, you know, actually experiencing the language and making sense of it and kind of solidifying it in their heads as well.
These are great. Talking to you guys, this is great to be able to hear other perspectives of how these things can be used. So this is wonderful.
Ryan, you said earlier, like you know, you have the templates here, and you said name it whatever you want and make up you have rules that you make, right? And that you might change. And so I'm thinking sometimes as teachers, as language teachers, we get stuck with the regular rules, and then we limit ourselves. And I think one of the things I've learned through playing games with my language learners is I don't have to follow those rules. We have to have a time limit that often, because, you know, they want to argue and they want to talk, and we want them to talk, but we also want it to be useful talk time. Well, let's talk about it together. For language learners, being able to negotiate all of those and agree upon rules that we follow, I think it's great. I think that's it doesn't limit you.
Okay. Awesome. These are a lot of great ideas.
All right, Michelle, which one do you want to grab next?
I don't know. Let's make a deal. I mean, it looks
Michelle,
like
so here's the age gap right here. Is like Michelle doesn't know all of the like these like classic games, right?
There's a cultural gap too, because
there's a cultural gap
from
too.
Mexico, so I'm missing that piece. So for me, it's like, oh, that looks cool. It looks like it's a legit game show.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, my mistake. You're old, but we're from different cultures.
Yeah, and it's interesting seeing I mean, I'm a man on the other side of 50, and it feels like the game shows are not what they once were.
No, no, no.
You know, with
you have to
so
get
many
people
other
in zip ties and slamming them against walls. That's how game shows work these days.
Yeah. But like the idea of what I grew up in Southern California, I grew up on, we got one television in the house. And there was family game night that you can play at home and you can watch on television. And I had two brothers and my mother did after school daycare. And I remember even trying to pretend to be sick so I could stay home and watch Price is Right.
Yeah.
Bob Barker at 10 o'clock on CBS. And it still is. I'm 50, almost 52. And it's not Bob Barker. He just passed away. But it's still 10 o'clock on CBS, and it's just, but it doesn't have that resonance that it once did, you know. And these shows still exist. I mean, basically, all the games that I have out that I have are still being produced. New ones are being produced all the time on Let's Make a Deal, Pyramid, Jeopardy, all that kind of stuff.
All right, so let's talk about Let's Make a Deal, Ryan. How does this game work? And
Let's Make a Deal is this one's your room's going to be hectic. The experience is hectic, and it's basically this. You ask people a question. Hey, can I break the class up into 3 teams? All right, give me somebody from player team 1, team 2, team 3. Come on up. Here's a question for you. You throw up the question. Hey, what's it called when plants turn the sunlight into energy? Ready? And everybody gets a whiteboard. Show me your answers. They all got photosynthesis. Correct. Nice job. And you give them money. And you could either give them money, you know,
paper money.
Not play money. I was thinking you could just write it on a board. That's boring.
Oh yeah.
I like to. I didn't bring it with you guys. Plus, this is an audio podcast, so nobody can see. I'll pretend I'll have it right here. You can get real fake money from Amazon, and I'll say, "Hey, congratulations, you all won. So here's $10. $10 for player 1, 10 for 2, 10 for 3. Now they have it. This game, the winning team is going to get prizes. So hey, I always have. Look at a moment's notice. Bang! There's Halloween candy for you. Winning team, you're all getting candy. Who wins? Whoever has the most money at the end. That's it. We're not playing to a certain number of questions. We're not playing to whatever. I have these number of questions, and nobody's even going to know how much money you have because we're not keeping it on a whiteboard. Everybody just got $10 for photosynthesis. And then they're going to be like, okay, before they start to think about walking back to their group, I say, hey, hold on a second. And they're like, wait a second. I'm like, okay, so here's the part of the game. It's called Let's Make a Deal. You all got $10. Congratulations. You got that question right. Do you want to keep that $10 or do you want what's behind curtain number 1 or curtain number 2 or curtain number 3? And what I have done on these curtains, some of them increase. Great. You have to give me that $10. Give that back to me. You chose curtain number 1. And if you open up curtain number 1, what do you have on curtain number 1? Congratulations, 20. Now I'll give you a $20 bill instead. And somebody's like, I went on that. Give me this one. I'm going to take curtain number 2. And you're like, woohoo, you got Post-it notes. Congratulations. There you go. And you're like, well, that's it. I got all these slides and they're all different goofy things or whatever. But basically, you want this money or I got a box, a real box. And you can shake the box. I got the box closed. Do you want it?
Yes.
You'll just see this. And it's so hilarious.
What's in the box?
What's in the box? What's in the box? It's now this phenomenon. The original host was called Monty Hall. And it's this whole thing that they talk about, the Monty Hall thing, that people are just driven by the unknown. Like, take the box, take the box. And you're like, I don't know. You could see if you scroll through it, I got all these other silly ones. Like instead of giving $10, I'll say, hey, congratulations, you got the question right. Now you get to roll a die. Whatever you roll, I'll add a 0 to that. You roll a 1, $10. You roll a 6, that's $60. But actually, I'll get you, before you roll the dice, do you want to roll 2 dice? If you answer the next question correct, you can roll 2 dice and double your money. Or if you get the question wrong, the double, then you lose your original money. So it's all these dilemmas. And they're representing their team, which is also kind of crazy. So I got
can
Tommy
see how it's going to be chaotic.
Tommy's like, and his team's yelled, take the money. And they're like, no, take the box, Tommy. And Tommy's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. It's kind of fun. So
that I can just, so I was planning for my next week's class, and this time I'm teaching American culture, and one of the pages is just a worksheet on what facts do you already know about the American flag. They're supposed to answer they're all international students, so they have to answer or guess or whatever. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I could turn that into this, and now they'll actually remember what the answers were, because usually they're focused on, I just need to write them down so we can go to the next activity.
I got some fun ones in here too. It's like one of them, hey, the 3 players come up. Sometimes they're not even questions. All right. Everybody write on your whiteboard what city you were born. Whoever was born from the farthest location from where we're at right now, I'm going to give you money. And they all turn over their answers. And who's the farthest? Then how much money do they get? I give them $2 for every letter.
Oh, that's good.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That works for us. Yeah.
You know, like if it's a really long name,
Yeah,
you
I'm
go 2,
scrolling
4,
down
6,
and
8,
like,
nice
that
job.
is
Woo.
cool.
That kind of stuff. And
so
That's
Ryan,
cool.
remind me, is Let's Make a Deal, was that the show that if they got like, if it opened up and it got the donkey or whatever, that it gave the trumpets the
womp,
is that
womp, and the sound
we need to
effect
have
is
that
on it,
sound
Brent.
effect.
It's called a zonk is the
the
technical term.
zonk? Oh,
Zonk. And if you get it, I got zonks built in. I got paper clips. I
Ooh,
got things that most people would have, post-it notes, and you just make up your own
your
too.
digital,
Like, hey,
digital.
you got my Tupperware from lunch today. I've already finished it. Congratulations.
I see one slide here that would end friendships. You get to steal $40 from one of the other
Oh.
teams.
Yeah, that's a good one. Like, I'll take curtain number 1. Like, hey, you get $40, but you got to go take it from another team. Now they go to the other team, and the team's all upset. Like, and again, the neat part of this game is nobody knows really who's winning or who's not. So when it's all over, you're like, okay, let me see team number 3, and then they're just counting their money, all that kind of stuff. I do recommend that you should be the player. You should be the host. Have somebody else be your banker. And the kid could be on a team, but basically you don't want to be doing a pause real second. You got $17 in your account.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's smart. Okay.
It's super
That's a good
cheap, by
tip.
the way.
That's a
Go to
good tip.
Amazon and look up Play Money. The Play Money nowadays is straight. It says Play Money on it up close, but boy, it looks really good.
All right. So we're going to jump to a true classic, Wheel of Fortune.
Oh, I'll be honest with you now as we're talking. Wheel of Fortune's a bit much. It's a bit much.
What makes it a bit much?
First off, all right, Wheel of Fortune's this is the time to go get a drink or whatever if you're listening to this thing. And if you're not, if I struggle with technology, maybe Wheel of Fortune ain't for you. But it's the one that it's been my white whale that people have asked me for a long time. How do you make a Wheel of Fortune game? And it's a complicated process. How can I be able to click on something? If I say, give me the letter M, how many letter M's are on that board? That's a complicated amount of,
that's real hard
coding, but there's some computer stuff that needs to go on there. And I built out all that in for you.
So I just want to be clear that they should be paying Vanna White more than she's getting for her salary, because it's not that easy to do technologically, right?
Yeah, good point. It's so complicated. Google Slides can't even remotely handle this. So this has to be a PowerPoint only game.
Okay.
And I was able to crack the nugget thanks to the YouTube and all that sort of stuff, found other peoples who were able to do that. And it's all built for you. And so if you're really excited and you want to do this, you simply come up with your phrase, whatever that phrase is. And then the game plays where they can spin a virtual wheel. I built a virtual wheel in PowerPoint that can stop. And they say, give me a letter T. And then if you click the letter T, you'll have to pre-do your puzzles. And then you put you spell it in the right place. Then when you click on T, all the T's pop up. So although I've done all the programming, you still need to be able to come up with what your phrases are. Let's say if it was going to be like United We Stand or something like that, you have to do UNITE. You got to bring the little boxes on there and do all that sort of stuff. Which brings me to the point I don't know if we mentioned at the beginning, but all of these games, if anybody wants to play with any of them, please, we'll talk about at the end about how you can access them. But I have a YouTube channel that walks you through all of this. I don't want to do a full-on, this is a podcast, and a tutorial would be terrible if I had a podcast. So I've done tutorials where you see my screen and I walk you through the process and such. So, and also the other caveat on Wheel of Fortune, it's my newest one. I've spent my summer working on this thing. You guys mentioned we're at the end of summer, and so that's what I did. People said, what do you do over the summer? I'm like, I sat on a lazy boy and I turned on Wheel of Fortune reruns, and my wife and I are watching that while I built this game.
Perfect. Ishel, I think we're gonna hit the last one here.
I don't know if I opened the last one.
Oh, you didn't get the last one?
Was there 5? Hold on.
We got it. I got it here. This is one, Ryan. I think we played it.
Win it. No, don't steal my fun. Right, I like the way I do know this game. Well, I know the title.
All right, minute to win it.
Brent, you tell me your story about Minute to Win It. You were going to mention something. What were you going to mention?
Yeah, I was just going to say that we pulled this up at Q, right? I think we had a version of this up at Q for the game show night, and people were going nuts, just running around. I have mixed memories of this night as people are going absolutely wild, and it was hard. Like, I mean, we're talking about like pure visual stimulation where there's just stuff going on all over the place. But I do remember this one coming up, and I think we had a great time. So that's my memory is just faded action, like a montage of action shots of people running around doing all sorts of crazy stuff. But that you tell me.
Sort of crazy
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. So basically, we've done minute to win it games. I think everybody has seen them and played them at parties, and real popular. For a while, it was actually a television game show.
I remember. That's how I remember it.
Yeah, it had a couple seasons of that as well too. How I modified it was this, and again, you'll see my direction slides on here. Plus, I got the YouTube tutorial on it. I came up with this, which is I want to play a game, but how can I connect it to some sort of, like I mentioned before, my Jeopardy reviewy stuff? So basically, I'm going to have 3 people. I usually do that same thing, but feel free. I like to do 3 teams, and then have 1 person from each team come up. That way, I usually my class is around 30 or so. And so that means I got 3 kids coming. So most people have an opportunity to play 1 or 2 times, kind of a thing. So if I have 1 person come up and then I give them 3 questions, each question I give 10 points. So let's say if you got them all right, 10, 20, 30 points. Other person got 2 questions right. They got 20 points, and the third person got 3 right. So it's 30, 20, and 30 points. And kind of like let's make a deal. We're not done with that. Now we're going to play a game where you can do more. So the minute to win it game, basically, I'm going to say this. If you came in first place in our minute to win it games, you're going to double what you got on the questions. If you came in second, I'm going to give you 10 points. And whoever came in third, you don't get any additional points. So basically, it's a review game. Then play some minute to win it challenges, and you can boost up how well you did. And that's it. And feel free to come up with, I have 11 games that you can look at, or scrap them all and make up your own. And I
see junk in the trunk.
Yeah, some of them are super easy to do, and you've had experience, and or some of them may require some stuff like junk in the trunk's fun. Junk in the trunk is fun, but you got to get like Kleenex, and you got to get like a little rope, and then you got ping pong balls. And if you don't have all that, you could just do let's do a bottle flip, like just do the water bottle.
Stack attack would be fun.
Flip the water bottle first.
Yeah,
kind of a thing.
I like that you have all these physical. It's physical, so I know. I tell Brent all the time. Sometimes my students get tired of being they're big adults in little tiny chairs. So I need to think of creative ways of getting them up and moving that energy so that they're in my class for 6 hours of language instruction daily.
Boy.
So that's hard.
Oh boy, yeah.
But
all of these minute to win it games on my YouTube tutorial, I actually got my daughters to come in, so we filmed them. So if you don't know, like, what does stack attack look like, we did a quick little filming so you can see all these ones.
I like Face Cookie.
Face Cookie is great. Like that one, the one that I said would start. I think it's a great start because basically the students will put a cookie on their forehead and they have to kind of hold it up there, and then when you say they're all standing in a row, and then when you say start, then they all have to figure out a way to slide the cookie down into their mouth somehow, right? And so
without using their hands,
and so they're making all these like weird awkward twerking motions. And then the other one too, I think it's in here, was the like blowing the M&M across the table to the goal or something like that too. I think we had a great video of who was that, Frank or someone.
That's right, yeah, Frank.
There's some really great just like it's also a good thing to grab action shots of your students, so then you can share those videos or you could share pictures out with them later, because then that reinforces the good times that they had as well. And so I really love the combination of the game and the activities together at once here. It's just so much fun stuff for everybody.
Again, not going anti-Jeopardy, but if you notice Jeopardy, Michelle, you mentioned the idea, like, if I'm just going to stand and teach kids and you're like, oh, we're going to mix it up. Now I'm going to stand and ask you questions while you sit down. You're like, okay, doesn't really change. It's still the same thing. So like, what can we do to be able to mix it up and such? So that's why all these are fun versions of that. I will give one caveat though to all these things is you are creating hey, this is a classroom, everybody. And then you're like, no, it's not. We're doing a game show, everybody. And some people, some kids it gets a bit too much.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, we're doing, and like, oh boy, like, hey, so it takes a little bit to train them a little bit, have some conversations in the beginning. Like, we're playing a game, like, what's appropriate behavior and all that sort of stuff. I'll say the number one.
We have to do that with adults too.
You do, and adults are all the worst. I'll say the number one problem, and it's a kind of a good problem, but the number one problem that you see is that if you do watch a game show on television, this is what you do at home. You yell out the answers.
Mm-mm.
And so that's fine when you're at home or you're at your friend's birthday party or holiday party. But here's a problem is that if some kid's up there and he's struggling, I think it's George Washington. You're like, stop me. So you do get that a lot.
So that moment, yeah.
So you kind of want it, and it could ruin things. Sometimes you just got to go like, all right, we're going to scrap that whole round because someone has ruined it for everybody.
I've given penalties. We came up with rules. So if you're distracting the other team, you're gonna give them a point. If you're yelling out the wrong answer to distract them, you're gonna give them 1 point.
I like that. It's not even take a point. It's not like you lost a point. You're giving it to the other team.
I like that. Yeah. Or
that's a good one. Yeah, I like that.
You can also just duct tape their mouths shut and see what happens.
You haven't read California Ed Code much, have you?
Texas.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Texas.
She's fine. She's all much different. All right. Well, there is a ton to play with here. Now, we did promise that if people made it through roughly to the end, that we'll show a way, but we're not at the end yet. So we're going to jump over to our fun finds.
We will, but I'll say this though. Hey, by the way, I'm like that late night info commercial. And there's more. Like I got more. So if you're like, oh my gosh, how many did we talk about? I got Connect Four, Battleship, Bingo, Tic-Tac-Toe, Family Feud, Price is Right. I'm working on a version of Sorry right now. And so if you're interested in any of these, we'll stick around to the rest of the show.
But that's not all. All right. Michelle.
It is time for our fun finds. And today I have a health fun find. I don't know if it's a health fun find, but
okay.
I'm a runner. So I'm constantly looking for different ways to up my protein intake and make sure that it's clean, that it's caffeine free, because otherwise I can't sleep at night. And my cousins recommended Frog Fuel protein packets. They're developed by Navy SEALs.
Are they made of frogs?
They have this huge burly frog on the cover, and I sure hope that it's not from a frog. No,
it's a burly frog.
But again, they don't have caffeine, and you can get, I think it's like 15 grams of protein in one little shot. They're pricey, but if you are serious, or if you are counting how much protein you're intaking and you're looking at what kind of protein, I would say it's worth a try. So Frog Fuel protein packet.
Frog Fuel protein packets. Okay. Sounds good. Mine is I am buying a new car here in Japan, and it is going to be, well, we've already found it. There's a lot of bureaucracy in just buying a car, and I won't bore you with all the details.
Do you have a parking spot for it?
You have to have a parking spot to buy a car, but you can't buy a car. You can't buy a car without a parking spot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's just a madness. So like we went to the police, and by the way, the police are involved in this situation too, Ryan. This is not just something that you go get a piece of paperwork done. We actually went down to the police station, and they're like, oh, well, you can't do it yet because you have to have all this information about the car that you, and it's just like, oh my God. So all of this is to say, yes, we do have a parking spot in place that we have to get. So you have to do placeholders on buying the car and buying the parking spot. But Toyota Hiace, it is the awesome minivan, and we're popping in a bed in the back of it. So we're doing like a mini van life in Japan thing. So there's
I just Google image that.
I just did that too, and I was like, ooh, that's a pretty big van for Japan.
It's a pretty sweet, like there's different sizes of that van, but it's a pretty big. I mean, I'm a big guy, roomy. So I need it's gonna be roomy. And then they have these kits that you can put in a bed onto it. So it's got the front seats, and then it's got one bucket row back seat, and then the rest of it is totally empty. And so we're putting in a bed back there and then storage underneath. And so that's what we're going to do driving around the country. And it's cool because I can still work from wherever, stop at like local libraries and different places and actually get my work done. But the Toyota Hiace is just an awesome van. And I am really excited to be doing some driving around the country and checking out places that most people don't go to in Japan because they don't have wheels. And so that's my fun find, is the Hiace.
So you know, fun fact, Brent has been talking about this for as early as I can remember, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, that you were talking about riding around in Japan to different places in a van. pretty cool to
making it happen. Yeah.
hear,
It's so this is where it's like there's like these little things where it's like it's gonna cost some money, but like this has been something I've really have been wanting to do for a long time. So
Very
Is this
cool.
one of those vehicles that you can't buy outside Japan? I've
yes.
never seen this before.
Yeah, you can't buy it outside of Japan, and like I would love to import it back, but you can't. Like California has like all these crazy import rules where you can't import a car that's less than 25 years old and like all these things. And so anyways, it is a cool looking van though. And then the one that we got is black, and it's got like it's like these like there's this subculture in Japan called the Yankee subculture, which is like these kind of like punkish kids, you know. And so it's got this like it's a little bit decked out with like these kind of funky looking accoutrements on it. So
You're gonna be that weird tourist in Japan, aren't you? The van guy, Brent the van guy.
yeah, I mean we'll see where I end up, but yeah, it's looking pretty cool. So Toyota Hiace, you can get it in Mexico, but you cannot get it in the States. So that's my fun find. Ryan, what do you got?
We were talking before the show, like social media or whatever, and I'm trying to be able to get all these game show stuff on the social medias, but I'm not really on there like I once did back in the day or whatever. And so as I did get on, like trying to get back on Twitter and trying to be able to post some game show stuff, I got on there and I stumbled upon maybe not the most appropriate, but for me, I mentioned before, like my age, like I'm a guy who grew up in the 70s and 80s, and I found this Twitter account that's kind of like the only reason I go to Twitter now, because it's who I am. It's called Super 70 Sports, and it's if you like sports or the 1970s and pictures of moms who are holding their babies and letting them hold their Budweiser cans and what McDonald's Happy Meals looked like back in 1974. And the guy's inappropriate. He says things, but it's just yeah, like this is what like the world. It's kind of hard. I can't show this to my students, but like it was a different place, guys. Yeah, you didn't know what the blue light special was when I was shopping at Kmart with my mom, but you'd run like crazy when the blue light went off. And anyway,
so
right.
We'll have a link to that.
Super 70s Sports. Yeah, they're so this is an after. I mean, it's not that bad. But it's maybe a maybe an at home type of look.
It's an at home.
Yeah. All right, awesome. There we go. All right, you've Michelle, you want to?
I thought you were pointing at me.
Oh, sorry, I was just waving fingers around for no reason at this point.
Got it.
I'll take this one.
Yeah.
All right, so you've made it this far, and Ryan, you promised a freebie for somebody, and this is actually you've really made it worth people's while to stick around to the end here. So, what are you offering here?
I'll offer you whatever you want. Actually, if you stuck around and listened that much, and you're really excited about it. So you guys tell me, what do you think would be the best way? If we just give you a link to all of my games, I'm going to give you a link to the YouTube channel, and you go there. And if there's any of these that you like, just if you shoot me a message, either 1,000 different ways. You can send me an email. You can make a comment on the YouTube channel. You can send me a Twitter direct message. You can. I was going to do Instagram, but how about that? Shoot me an email or send me a message on the YouTube thing, and just say, "Hey Ryan, I'd love to try. Let's make a deal." And then I'll just share with you. I'll share with you the link where you can go and be able to download the thing.
You want door number 1 or door number 2?
My only request is that if you like it, just share it with a friend. I know it's a bit of a hot debated thing, but I am trying to be able to have my stuff on Teachers Pay Teachers. It has been for me, it's been a place where I have spent. It's where I could be able to put my stuff that I have spent a lot of time on. I spent so much time on everything from the sound effects to the graphics to the gameplay. It is something I've been doing. Literally, I came up with my first Jeopardy game when I student taught in 1997, and I have been doing it nonstop. Basically, it's what I always keep going back to. And so
quality slide decks, like the whole well-rounded, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and this is why this is actually the place where I do like Teachers Pay Teachers, is like the people putting in real effort, and hey, I've actually made a lot of time and put a time and effort into this, and so please pay for it. But you're giving away a freebie, so people reach out. We'll put a link to ways to get hold of you in the show notes at diesel.org/9 90, right? And not the number 90. And then grab whichever game you want from Ryan. And then if you like them, if you like them, maybe you can support the next one and see what's going on.
And share with a friend. Please pass the word along.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to wrap up here. So for show notes and other episodes, you can check us out at diesel.org/90. That's the number 90. And of course, you can listen to us at Voice Ed Canada. That's voiced.ca. You can find us kind of at Twitter. I'm playing a little bit more with Threads, Ishel, but
right now I'm
empty.
not really using social media. I'm mostly we're moving our episodes to YouTube.
Oh yeah, we didn't say that.
There,
yeah.
So I want to engage maybe more with people on YouTube. I feel like my tribe of teachers is sort of there. What used to be on Twitter.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel more connected there right now where I wasn't before. So
cool.
Yeah, you can.
So people can find us at YouTube at is it Diesel Pod, I think, right? Also,
we're the same everywhere.
Same everywhere. So Diesel Pod, YouTube. You can find me on social medias in general at Brent G Warner.
You can find me still on Twitter at _Pixie. That's IXY_PIXY.
And Ryan, where can people find you?
Yeah, check me out on the Twitters at Creative Ed Tech, but go to the YouTube channel. That's the big thing.
All right.
In German, thank you is Dankeschön. So Dankeschön for tuning in to the Diesel Podcast.